pictures of the Greek wife. Praxagora is recounting the merits and services of women.
They dip their wool in hot water, according to the ancient plan, all of them without exception, and never make the slightest innovation. They sit and cook, as of old. They carry upon their heads, as of old. They conduct the thesmophoriae, as of old. They wear out their husbands, as of old. They buy sweets, as of old. They take their wine neat, as of old.
And that this was also the kind of ideal approved by their lords and masters, and that any attempt to pass beyond it was resented, is amusingly illustrated in the following extract from the same poet, where Lysistrata explains the growing indignation of the women at the bad conduct of affairs by the men, and the way in which their attempts to interfere were resented. The comments of the magistrate typify, of course, the man's point of view.
Oh, think of our old moderation and gentleness. Think how we bore with your pranks, and were still, all through the days of your former prognacity, all through the war that is over and spent. Not that, be sure, we approved of your policy. Never our griefs you allowed us to vent. Well we perceived your mistakes and mismanagement. Often at home on our housekeeping cares, often we heard of some foolish proposal you made for conducting the public affairs. Then we would question you mildly and pleasantly, inwardly grieving, but outwardly gay. Husband, how goes it abroad? We would ask of him. What have ye done in assembly to day? What would ye write on the side of the treaty stone? Husband says angrily, what's that to you? You hold your tongue. And I held it accordingly.
Stratulis.
That is a thing which I never would do.
Magistrate.
Ma'am, if you hadn't, you'd soon have repented it.
Therefore I held it, and spake not a word. Soon of another tremendous absurdity, wilder and worse than the former, we heard. Husband, I say with a tender solicitude, why have you passed such a foolish decree? Viciously, moodily, glaring askance at me. Stick to your spinning, my mistress, says he, else you will speedily find it the worse for you. War is the care and the business of men.
Zeus, 'twas a worthy reply, and an excellent.
What, you unfortunate! Shall we not then, when we see you perplexed and incompetent, shall we not tender advice to the state?
The conception thus indicated in burlesque of the proper place of woman is expressed more seriously from the point of view of the average man in the Oikonomikos of Xenophon. Ischomachus, the hero of that work, with whom we have already made acquaintance, gives an account of his own wife, and of the way in which he had trained her. When he married her, he explains, she was not yet 15, and had been brought up with the utmost care, that she might see, hear, and ask as little as possible. Her accomplishments were weaving, and a sufficient acquaintance with all that concerns the stomach; and her attitude towards her husband she expressed in the single phrase,
Everything rests with you. My duty, my mother said, is simply to be modest.
Ischomachus proceeds to explain to her the place he expects her to fill. She is to suckle his children, to cook, and to superintend the house; and for this purpose God has given her special gifts, different from, but not necessarily inferior to those of man. Husband and wife naturally supply one another's deficiencies, and if the wife perform her function worthily, she may even make herself the ruling partner. And be sure that as she grows older, she will be held not less but more in honor, as the guardian of her children, and the stewardess of her husband's goods. In Xenophon's view, in fact, the inferiority of the woman almost disappears, and the sentiment approximates closely to that of Tennyson: either sex alone is half itself, and in true marriage lies nor equal nor unequal, each fulfils defect in each. Such a conception, however, of the complementary relation of woman to man does not exclude a conviction of her essential inferiority; and this conviction, it can hardly be disputed, was a cardinal point in the Greek view of life. End of chapter 3, section 8. Recording by Martin Geeson in Haslemere, Surrey.